Welcome, my valued viewer, to another Proguides video, the leading low-sodium Dota 2 channel on YouTube. Today we're going to talk about the last, and I really do hope it's the last, because just give the new patch already, please, please. But this is the last innovation we're going to see in 7.27D. I'm guessing, I'm hoping, please. It's the end of November, so come on, hurry it up. Anyway, Leshrac. Finally. The channels have been predicting for months that Leshrac would be good, and still people really weren't picking it at all, especially at high level, but all of a sudden Leshrac, he is really starting to take over. So put on your bell-bottom jeans and hairspray those afros, because we're gonna party like it's 1999 with the disco pony. Let's learn all about him. But first, the question of the day. I want to know, what hero did you know was good that no one believed you, but then eventually it turned out it was really good and you were like, I told you, I knew this all along. For me, I'll just say Death Prophet and Razor during TI4. I only played Captain's Mode and Ranked back then, and we would first pick or ban those heroes like all the time. So what did you know was good that no one else believed you about? First up, let's talk about what is going on with Leshrac. Why is he coming into the meta all of a sudden? First of all, he has been receiving buff after buff, and you know that when those heroes go under the radar and they just start piling up buff after buff because people aren't playing them, those tend to be the heroes that just suddenly show up as overpowered. Just listen to this long list of buffs that Leshrac has gotten recently. +2 strength, plus additional AoE to Pulse Nova the ultimate, more strength growth, 3 attack damage, upgrading the rate of fire on the Agnum Scepter by about 15%, increased his agility gain by 0.5, increased his agility gain by another 0.6. What? Now he gains 2.8 agility. He used to gain only 1.7. That's like kind of a lot. I mean, I know you're barely attacking his Leshrac, but just think about all the armor that he has now. Pulse Nova damage increased, Pulse Nova mana cost reduced. And that's not even going into the talent reworks, because that's so much little stuff, but at the end of the day, the talent reworks were a buff. But people knew this, people have been predicting this. We see the patch notes. I mean, a small majority of Dota players can read, like we knew this. So why wasn't Leshrac getting picked? I think it's pretty simple. Leshrac on the surface is pretty awful. He's got bad base stats, doesn't really have good regular skills. In fact, I'll say he has the worst regular skills in the game other than Diabolic Edict. But the ultimate is unbelievable now. With Agnum Scepter, Leshrac's ultimate can do up to 380 magical DPS. You got 200 from the max level ulti, and then if you add the Agnums, you got Lightning Storm, shooting every 1.5 seconds, 210 damage. So if you factor that down and do some math, that's 340 magical DPS. Oh, and then you can add on level 20 talent, up that even more to 380. Oh, and then you can add the Lightning Storm talent at 25, which would make it about 440 DPS. That's more than a maximum level nuke from another hero, going off every single second in an AoE. Like what? In summary, Leshrac melts creep waves, he melts heroes, he melts towers, but he himself also melts. And he's got a terrible body, and his other skills are horrible, the worst in the game. Before we get into builds, I want to talk about how to play Leshrac and what his friends and foes are, because that's a big part of how the pros are abusing him. Is this hero is great in tandem, because all he does is damage, and he does a lot of it. He does pushing and he does damage. That means he wants to be backed up by somebody who saves him. This is maybe the only legitimate partner of Omni Knight in the patch. Omni Knight, really bad hero, but great at keeping somebody alive who needs to be tanky. Leshrac needs exactly that. He needs partners like Oracle, Treant Protector, nice for setting up the stun as well. So you're looking mainly for people who set up your abilities and for people who can keep you alive. As for a carry on Leshrac's team, Leshrac works fine with most carries. You can play Leshrac either as a hard fighter or a hard farmer from the mid lane. Either way, you would typically want to play the opposite style of your carry. So if your carry is just gonna farm, you should just fight. And if your carry wants to fight, then you're gonna just farm. If the situation calls for it, you're a fine split pusher, very fast, builds boosted travel pretty much every game, completely destroys towers and creep waves. Let's discuss these abilities now. First off, you got Split Earth. Split Earth has a 1.1 second delay, which is massive and makes it even harder to land than Lena's stun, and it also has a very small radius of 225, again making it harder to land. It's 2 seconds of stun at all level, the radius scales with levels up to 225. When it comes to using this skill, you gotta be mindful of that massive 1.1 second delay. If you watched our items you're using wrong video, we talked a lot about Yule's Scepter. Yule's Scepter puts somebody up in the air for 2.5 seconds, 2 full rotations. So, to get off the perfect Leshrac stun, you want to hit that stun right after they finish their first rotation in the air. Now without Yule's, this gets a lot trickier because the range is not generous at all, and you don't really want a cast range item on Leshrac either. So, you usually want to try to set it up with lightning because that actually slows a little bit. So you're going to try to hit split earth after lightning. Otherwise, maybe fake it in lane or try to come from an angle where they can't just run away and you'll miss if they go straight. The only good thing about this spell is that it does 300 damage for a stun, which is pretty good. At least if you're not Sven. Sven is laughing at that. 2 advanced tips in how to apply them on this spell would be that this breaks trees, meaning you can do things like get into the trees and break your way through the tree line with this stun in order to pull off some insane backdoor edict play, especially if you're level 25, or to get a really weird angle to come at behind somebody to gank so that they can't easily avoid your stun. The other advanced tip being that I said there's a 1.1 second delay for this spell, but not all of that is cast animation. Actually, some of it is just a delay. So you can complete the animation and then you can have a bit of free movement, and then the stun happens about 1/3 of a second after you complete the animation. You can use this knowledge to get in a little bit of extra distance while chasing. You don't just have to stand there. You also need to be careful against Leshrac. I have done things like stun an Enigma out of Black Hole, where he gets off Black Hole and then suddenly he's still stunned. The Enigma was not accounting for the fact that I was only in my backswing animation, which is meaningless. He did not actually cancel my animation. My stun still gets off and he gets canceled out of something. So this means that you can get off more stuns than you think when people are trying to go on you. Diabolic Edict is a great physical damage spell. The main and just most infamous usage of this ability is to push towers, and that is what you want to do. Make sure you be wary of the glyphs. Sometimes I'll do things like I'll fake the animation on this because it's got a long animation. See if I can make them use glyph, and then after the glyph is over, I'll actually commit the edict. This works better actually at high MMR because they'll like look at you for that edict timing, and then they'll glyph right as you edict. I've also had this tactic lead to very strange situations where they just never glyph. It's like I never use edicts, so then they just never glyph, and it's like, okay, now I win either way. Once you have this maxed, if you know you're dead, I would try to just go in and hard commit to the fight with your ulti and this on anyway, because even when you die, this buff, it's a buff on you for some reason, it persists after death. So the diabolic explosions still go off, and sometimes people die to that because they don't really pay attention. Then you have Lightning Storm, which is just a really vanilla and not good skill. At least it was buffed recently, both from the Ags and the base skill as well. Keep in mind it takes 1/4 of a second for each bounce, so don't expect to get every single CS you think you will with it, because you have to account that it's going to take like a whole second at least to hit the creep wave. And then also, keep in mind it does a gigantic backswing, like all of Leshrac's spells, but especially this one. This one is the biggest. Be issuing new commands right after you cast this, because you don't want to stand around for this 0.87 second backswing just doing nothing. Then you have the ulti, which is very basic but very powerful. 475 radius, tons of magical damage. The Ags upgrade is just 1 lightning storm ball. That's not the full amount of bounces. That would be even more disgustingly insane, but very good spell. 475 range, which is 100 less than your attack range, so use that as a ruler. Now for the builds. Skill build, we're going to go level 1 stun. You're going to do this pretty much every single game. There's no reason not to do this. It's the best for securing CS in the mid lane. It's the best for securing CS anywhere. If you're going to play offlane or position 4 Leshrac, or even carry Leshrac, which you can totally do, this opens up more kill potential with your support. If you get into a level 1 rune fight and there's absolutely nothing else around, then yes, you can do Diabolic Edict and it will do quite a lot of damage, but still the stun level 1 damage is pretty value at 120, and you get the whole stunning aspect of it, so you can just get the bounty rune, so I would pretty much never do that. Next, we're taking 2 points of Lightning Storm. This is primarily for mid lane because Leshrac's animation and damage, while buffed, is still bad. And to compete with mids and their superior CSing skills and base stats, you would go 2 points in Lightning. This is still a decent spell for spamming out the wave. From there, in our featured build, we're going to just max Edict. You really want this to be able to push towers. You could max Edict by 7 as well too, but that might be a little early to push towers a lot of the time. By 9, we're probably good and ready. This ability scales really well for each skill point you put into it, while the other two are pretty bad in scaling. Maxing lightning first it's a build. You can definitely do it, but you don't need it to farm because your ulti is way better for farming. You don't need it for damage because your ulti is a lot of damage, and Edict is more damage than Lightning Storm to heroes anyway, so I cannot really see any world where you max lightning. As for the talents, you're going to go armor, strength, pulse nova damage, or lightning storm slow if you're going to go the ags, and then at 25 lightning storm damage if you went ags. If not, diabolic edict explosions. Move speed and radius are completely viable as well, and I will always go radius if I'm not going Yules, but I'm pretty much going Yules every game. For our starting items, we have the most basic mid items imaginable. Don't need to say anything about this. From there, you're going to upgrade them into Null Talismans. Null Talismans, extra amazing on Leshrac. Mana regen, super good. Magic damage, super good. Spell amp is, of course, spell amp. It doesn't have to be magic damage, so it amps your edict as well to push even faster. Very standard regen, and then arcane boots, which will later disassemble into bloodstone. For our first core item, you're going to want Yule's Scepter. This item is amazing on Leshrac because 1, move speed and mana is really good. 2, you need setup for Split Earth because Split Earth is just really hard to land. And additionally, if you're defensively Yulesing yourself, then Pulse Nova is still proccing around you. So even though you're invulnerable, the enemies are still going to be taking a lot of damage from both Edict and Pulse Nova. From here, we can go either Travels, Bloodstone, or Aghanims. Aghanims if you want a ton of damage and you know your team can keep you safe. Bloodstone if you want to farm a lot, and it's also a good defensive item as well now that active heals for a lot. And then Travels if you want to split push, but in general you just get Travels no matter what on Leshrac. Move speed is super good on Leshrac, and the ability to go to anywhere you want in order to push towers, very, very nice. Leshrac is unique as a spellcaster because he actually wants to be tanky. He wants to be up in those front lines. You need to be close doing Diabolic Edict and Pulse Nova. All your spells are quite low ranged. So we're going to want to be tanky to be able in the middle of the fight. So BKB pretty much every single game. Shiva's Guard for armor. And then you're going to need an Octarine Core because it's got that little built-in magic resistance, and you're going to be lifestealing a lot because you do so much damage on Leshrac. For other options, we have items like Lincoln Spear, Blink Dagger, Lotus Orb, Ghost, Glimmer, Aeon Disc, and Refresher. This Refresher might be a little interesting to you. The reason you do this is because you need BKB so badly that having 2 BKBs is great. And then also, it's very good for super late game because you can use 2 Diabolic Edicts with a 25 talent. Absolutely obliterate barracks, like before people can respond, through backdoor. Check out the description of this video to see this guide linked to you in Steam so you can load it up and use it yourself. Tell me how it goes. To those who are celebrating Thanksgiving, a big happy Thanksgiving from your Proguides family, and we will see you in the next video. Drop a like, a sub, hit that follow bell to see the new stuff we got coming out as soon as it comes out. That patch is dropping any second. You're going to want to see what we got to say about it, so peace out.